Good day, everyone. Welcome to Health Promotion Kingston's Choose to Defuse the Booze webinar. Thank you for joining me today to gain a little bit more awareness and education around alcohol use and consumption. So thanks for joining me. And I'm really happy to be able to deliver this webinar today. It's wonderful to still continue to be connected to the CAF community and deliver a variety of educational webinars surrounding the areas of health promotion. So let's get started. My name is Jackie LeSarge, and I am a health promotion specialist here in Kingston. And as I had mentioned, we are choosing to diffuse the booze today. So throughout this webinar, I am going to turn my camera off just to make the screen a bit larger and to save some of that bandwidth as well, just so we don't get any interference with that throughout the session. I will return to the video at the end of the webinar just to say goodbye and for some final thoughts and comments. My screen right there, and let's get started. But before we get started into content, I just wanted to do a quick review of some points. The presentation you are about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense, so any reproduction or retransmission of the slides contained in this presentation is strictly forbidden. Some of the topics discussed in this webinar may be of a sensitive nature and may not be appropriate for children, so we do ask for parental discretion. Understand that people's stories are theirs alone to tell. And if there is anything that's shared in this webinar, let's maintain that confidentiality. And then lastly, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available for viewing later on at cafconnection.ca. So if you're missing it today, like I'm sure many of you are, it will be added to our health promotion program webinar library that you can get at cafconnection.ca. So I just want to recognize that some of you may be new to health promotion and not necessarily familiar with the role of health promotion in the Canadian Armed Forces. So I just wanted to do a brief overview of our specific role. So when it comes to health promotion in the CAF, health promotion, the program is called Strengthening the Forces. And what that is, it's a partnership between the Director of Force Health Protection and health promotion delivery staff. So content is provided by health services, and we as health promotion specialists deliver the content to the CAF community. We fall under the PSP umbrella, which falls under an even larger umbrella, CFMWS, which is the Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services. Our primary role in the CAF is to provide a variety of educational workshops that focus on prevention and awareness to the CAF community to help them take control over their health and well-being. So our focus is in four main areas of health promotion. As you can see on the screen here, addiction awareness and prevention, social wellness, nutritional wellness, and active living and injury prevention. There are a variety of programs underneath each pillar. Today, you're going to be getting a snippet from our alcohol, other drugs, gambling and gaming supervisor training, which we offer here specifically locally as a 2-day workshop. And it's a supervisor workshop, which is Mighty coded. All of our programs are Guardian coded. We also offer several challenges and campaigns as well. And you can also follow us here locally at PSP Kingston on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where you can get a variety of information, not only with health promotion, but just with PSP and CFMWS in general. So be sure to follow us and like us. All of our programs are available to the CAF community, including family members, 18 or over, regular reserve retired military members, as well as DND and NPF civilian employees. And they're all free, which is a huge bonus. So again, this is just a welcome slide. Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to hear what I have to say and hear what information I have to deliver you deliver to you surrounding alcohol awareness. So how do we diffuse the booze? Well, what I'm going to be talking about today in relation to diffusing the booze is the concept of awareness and education. So I'm going to be delivering quite a bit of information that can build on our awareness of our alcohol consumption, perhaps the alcohol consumption of those around us and those close to us. We'll also speak to awareness and education around alcohol and stress. You'll have an opportunity to do a self-reflection. We'll talk about the low-risk drinking guidelines. And all of this comes, the awareness and education piece is coupled with the concept of harm reduction. So in health promotion, we're not going to sit here and say, do not drink alcohol ever. That is not realistic. For those of us who choose to use the booze, who choose to drink alcohol, that's completely fine. That is your personal choice. But the concept of harm reduction is to basically deliver approaches that aim to reduce the adverse health, social, and economic consequences of alcohol. So without necessarily requiring abstinence. So how can we minimize those risks associated with alcohol use? And we are going to talk about that through a variety of awareness and educational pieces today. So let's start off with this question. I invite you to just think for a couple of seconds. For those of you who choose to drink, why do you drink? Overall, why would an individual choose to have an alcoholic beverage? There are a variety of reasons why people choose to drink, and those reasons do vary depending on the individual and perhaps the situation that an individual is in. People may drink to just feel better, to be happy, to relax a little bit, to perhaps cope with a bad day or bad situation, to be accepted. So there is an element of peer pressure that could be attributed to why people choose to drink. Some people choose to drink to be a little bit more social, to be a bit more funny, to dance better. Some people just appreciate the taste of a glass of wine or a scotch or a beer. So there are a variety of reasons. And I mean, there might be more here than that's not on this slide. And we might have our own personal reasons as well as why we choose to drink. But at the end of the day, people use substances or alcohol to change the way they feel. Especially now, at a time during this COVID crisis that we're in, alcohol consumption may be elevated for some individuals. Stress levels are higher, anxiety levels are higher, anger levels are higher. So often, as it says on the slide, often individuals choose to drink to cope with some of these elevated levels of stress and anxiety, perhaps boredom as well. So I myself have noticed quite an influx of quarantine memes surrounding alcohol. I don't know if any of you have seen these memes out there on social media, but I included these examples as they are a reflection of what is happening in our world right now. And it's something to reflect on. Have you been drinking more during the COVID crisis? Are you in your home alone, bored, perhaps, drinking alcohol to pass the time, involving alcohol more during in-home activities such as board games, watching movies, making dinner, things like that? Because the increased stress and increased boredom is there for many people, this could be the situation right now. And in some ways, this messaging does make light of the fact that some people may be increasing their consumption of alcohol due to the world's current situation. And it's okay to have a little laugh, as it can be quite relatable for some, and it's a way of kind of being connected to others and perhaps having a conversation or a little laugh with others. But it is also very important to be mindful of the amount of alcohol you and your loved ones do consume at this time, because it is easy to overlook. It's a very unfortunate, stressful, strange, scary time, so it's especially important now to really be mindful of that. So to create some more awareness and education around alcohol consumption, I just wanted to review some definitions that are often used to describe one's drinking patterns. So we have social drinker, and this is a common expression. There's no real concrete definition, but essentially a social drinker is one who drinks socially, right? So at a party, has a couple of drinks. Social drinkers tend to be able to follow the low risk drinking guidelines, so are in pretty good control over their drinking patterns. Problem drinker is somebody who drinks above the safe limit more often than not. And usually when they drink above the safe limit, they get into a situation that has negative consequences. So problem drinkers are those that get to a point where perhaps their drinking causes them to be late for work due to severe hangovers. They may get into fights or altercations or conflict when they're drinking. DUIs could be a component of someone who's a problem drinker. Problem drinkers do not meet the criteria for alcohol dependency. Alcoholic is where that alcohol dependency comes into play. So an alcoholic is that persistent use of alcohol despite the negative consequences. Take a minute to reflect on this question. What percent of CAF members self-reported that they consume a harmful amount of alcohol? What do you think? Well, if you guessed D, 19%, you were right. So according to the 2013-2014 Healthy Lifestyle Information Survey that was distributed amongst regular CAF members, 19% self-reported that they consumed a harmful amount of alcohol. Now, alcohol is the number one drug of choice for CAF personnel, and of course the general population as well. 94% of CAF members reported that they do drink alcohol. Is this a surprise? Now, it has been noted too, from the CAF community, that there is a culture around alcohol use and the CAF and the Canadian Armed Forces. In a variety of discussions with CAF members through our alcohol, other drugs, gambling, and gaming workshops, it's communicated quite a bit that there is a pressure to drink alcohol through a variety of different CAF functions, celebrations, promotions, and social events. So there has been a culture around alcohol consumption within the CAF, but it's also been communicated that that CAF members are seeing a shift in culture change, where there's no longer a strong sense of pressure to have to participate in drinking alcohol. So we are seeing some change in terms of alcohol consumption within the CAF community at some of these social gatherings and events, which is a good thing. Based on workplace research in Canada, one of Canada's leading workplace researchers within the Centre of Addiction and Mental Health discovered that environmental stress is linked to twice as many substance use problems, along with conflicts, increased injuries, as well as increased mental health concerns. And according to the Healthy Lifestyle and Information Survey, it was reported that 49% of CAF members attribute the source of their stress to the work or school environment. So unfortunately, members who are experiencing mental distress, elevated levels of stress and anxiety often turn to alcohol and other drugs to self-medicate and cope with their problems. This slide is quite powerful in the sense that chronic stress is quite harmful to our health, to our relationships, to our mental, physical health. And it's quite common that individuals lean on alcohol to cope. So how is this something how can this be changed? How can we better identify this and make a change to do better and to minimize the negative coping strategy of alcohol use to feel better? Productivity can decrease up to 25% under the influence of drugs or alcohol. This is largely due to presenteeism. Presenteeism refers to being physically there, but not being mentally there. So not being able to focus, not being able to be productive, seeing a decrease in one's work performance and job performance, which can have an impact on operational readiness. And it poses a health and safety risk within the workplace, not only to self, but to others as well. What could be some warning signs of potential substance misuse? So if you are going into work and noticing some particular signs that may indicate somebody is misusing alcohol, what would some of those signs be? We already kind of talked about some of them already. Take a few minutes or a few seconds to think about that. So when we look at some potential signs of substance use, here are some examples of physical, emotional, and behavioral warning signs. There can be physical signs. You may see someone come in to work constantly tired, not getting enough sleep, showing obvious signs of fatigue. Perhaps there's weight loss happening. Bloodshot eyes are some physical signs to look for. Looking all disheveled and not well kept. Emotional signs such as mood swings, just feeling low, down, depressed, increased anger and frustration, maybe some remorse as well. And then lastly, behavioral signs. So change in personal appearance, someone who used to perhaps, be really well kept and well put together, started to decline in terms of their hygiene and their personal appearance when coming to work. Of course, there's that decreased productivity and work performance that can be a sign as well. Elevated signs of stress or mental distress can be a sign too that maybe there's some substance misuse there. But you just want to keep in mind with a lot of these signs, they could be indicators or red flags of something else and not necessarily alcohol or drug misuse. So you always want to keep that in mind prior to making the assumption or jumping to conclusions about substance misuse. So it's always good to have these signs documented and have the conversation and not come with the individual and not come to a concrete conclusion on your own. The mental health continuum model is a great tool that is utilized within the CAF community to help identify some of those changes in behavior that may indicate mental distress. So this tool was created by the military for the military, and it assesses mood, attitude, sleep patterns, physical health, social health, and at the bottom there you can see it circled, not very well. Sorry about that. But it also speaks to addictions such as alcohol use, gambling, and gaming. So the idea with the mental health continuum model is to really have an idea of what someone looks like when they're in the green, when they're healthy, when things are going well in someone's life and they're able to stay on top of their own physical, social, mental health. Because once you know somebody and you know what they're like when they're well, it's easier to identify when someone may cross the line into the yellow, into the orange, and into the red, which we want to try to prevent. So if we start noticing those changes in behavior in the yellow right away, that's an indicator. Wait a second, something's going on. Have that conversation with that person, offer support. You want to catch that early on before an individual might slide into the red where it's a lot harder to get back to the green. So it's a prevention model. It's an idea the idea is to combat some of that mental distress that someone may experience, someone you know, but also within yourself as well, to combat that early so it can be treated earlier and you can get back to normal at an increased, easier rate than if you had fallen all the way into the red. We'll come back to the mental health continuum model very briefly near the end as well. So now what I wanted to do, just to focus again on the awareness piece of alcohol consumption, I wanted to do a little self-reflection on our own drinking patterns. So I wanted you to take a second and I want you to identify or think about how many drinks containing alcohol, if you choose to drink alcohol, do you have on a typical day? Now, what about during a typical week? So just think about your typical week. How many drinks would you perhaps have during that week? And then lastly, what about the max number of drinks you would normally consume on one occasion? Feel free to write these numbers down, as you know, it helps to see some of these numbers to better become aware of the reality of your alcohol consumption. All right. Well, thank you for reflecting on that. This is a good segue into identifying what those low-risk drinking guidelines are. So if you choose to drink alcohol, again, that's fine. But Canada has put into place some low-risk alcohol drinking guidelines that can help minimize the health risks associated with drinking alcohol. So now that you have become more aware of what your drinking patterns are like, now is for that education piece of being familiar with and knowing what those low-risk drinking guidelines are, and then comparing them to your own drinking patterns. So I want you to, some of you may already know what the low-risk alcohol drinking guidelines are. For men and women, there are different guidelines for men and women. So just take a few seconds to think about this for a second. So if you answered B, you are correct. So the recommended guidelines in Canada for low-risk drinking to reduce those long-term health risks for women is 0 to 2 standard drinks per day and no more than 10 standard drinks per week. For men, it's 0 to 3 per day and no more than 15 per week. Now, these are set in place not as targets. So if you're not currently drinking alcohol per day, these guidelines aren't telling you to start drinking alcohol. They are just providing you with those limits. So when you did that self-reflection on your current drinking patterns, how do they compare to Canada's low-risk drinking guidelines? It's also important with the low-risk drinking guidelines, and it's encouraged to have non-drinking days as well throughout the week, just to help minimize that tolerance to alcohol as well as habit formation. So with the low-risk drinking guidelines, they talk about standard drink sizes. So does anybody know what a standard drink size is? No, this is not a standard drink. These are standard drinks. So for the guidelines, a drink means for beer, it's a 12-ounce beer. For a cider or cooler, it's 12 ounces as well. For wine, it's 5 ounces. And for like a spirit or hard liquor, it's 40% alcohol content at 1.5 ounces. For wine, it's 12%. And for both beer and ciders and coolers, it's 5%. So it's important to be mindful of the alcohol percentage as well when it comes to those standard drink sizes. And it's very interesting because some pubs and restaurants don't even offer the 5 ounce. It's either a 6 ounce or a 9 ounce. So just being mindful over the amounts of how much wine are you pouring into that glass. Maybe you're thinking you're drinking your one drink for the day, but you may have poured 10 ounces into that wine glass, which can be easy to do because there are large wine glasses out there. And for your standard pint at a pub, that could very easily equal to almost 2 standard drinks as well. So really being mindful and being educated on what a standard drink is can really help you reevaluate your alcohol consumption if it is above the recommended guidelines. And did you know that the red Solo cup actually outlines the standard drink sizes on it as well. And it's just the red Solo cups. So it does identify the 1.5 ounces of hard liquor, the 5 ounces of wine, and the 12 ounces of beer. So another tidbit for you, another piece of education that you can take with you today to help monitor your alcohol consumption. Another health implication that can come into play when we talk about alcohol consumption is weight gain. So alcohol has about 7 calories per gram, and it can contribute to weight gain, even just by following the low-risk drinking guidelines. And as you can see here, we did a calculation that just by following the low-risk drinking guidelines for a week, there is potential for 31 pounds per year for men and 21 pounds per year for women. So another thing to keep in mind with alcohol consumption is being mindful of that piece too, because weight gain also can have adverse effects on one's health as well. Going into more education and awareness when it comes to being impaired from drinking alcohol. What blood alcohol content is one considered impaired? If you said 0.08%, you are correct. So 0.08 is the maximum legal blood concentration, which is 80 milligrams of alcohol in 100 milliliters of blood. In Ontario, if your blood alcohol concentration is between 0.05 and 0.08, there can potentially be serious consequences. And this is termed the warning range. And there is zero tolerance for those who are 21 and under. What are some signs you may see in an individual who is impaired? Or you know someone was very intoxicated when they did this. Often slurred speech, impaired coordination and balance, kind of sloppy. Maybe they're talking a lot more than usual. Just things like that. So those are a lot of easily obvious signs that indicate somebody is impaired. So this slide is really interesting because it does create a visual. And again, here's another awareness and educational piece. It does create a visual of alcohol's pathway through the brain and the impairment that begins after the first drink. So when you have your first drink, the first thing that gets impacted or impaired is your reason, your caution, your memory, and your intelligence. Then if you decide to have another drink or two, your self-control and your judgment becomes impeded. Continue to have more drinks, that's where your senses start to become impaired. You're feeling no pain at this point. And then if you decide to continue on with your consumption of alcohol and have more drinks, that's when that coordination, that balance, that slurred speech start to become visible, and you become obviously impaired to others around you. Your vital centers are then impacted the more alcohol you decide to consume, and this is where it may cause things such as, vomiting, or you may in fact pass out or black out. So this is a very interesting and educational piece of information, and it's something to be mindful of, especially if you are coming into work after a late night as well, because it does take a while for the alcohol to metabolize. So just being mindful that reason, caution, memory, intelligence, self-control, and judgment are the first things that are impaired. So that drink over lunch, which is policy says it's not allowed, and that self-control and that judgment are significantly impaired. And are those important in the workplace or at school? Yes, they are. So being mindful of that is huge. When it comes to sobering somebody up, what do you think? What is the best plan of action? So to give them some coffee, some caffeine to wake them up a little bit. Food is often thought of as a good way to sober someone up, as it can absorb the alcohol. A cold shower. These are all common ways that individuals think of to try and make someone feel a little bit better or become less intoxicated. But those, in fact, do not work. So your body gets rid of alcohol at a relatively constant rate, but that rate is definitely not the same for everyone. There are a variety of factors that come into play that impact that rate, such as gender, how much food you have in your stomach, etc. But on average, it takes about 1 to 3 hours to metabolize one standard drink. So what does work? Time. So it takes multiple hours, depending on how much someone consumed, to fully metabolize that alcohol and get it out of their system and to completely sober up. So again, another education piece. One standard drink, so that 5 ounces of wine, it could take an individual up to 3 hours to fully metabolize that drink. So something, again, to keep in mind if you are out with friends at a party, at a pub, and you are drinking alcohol till wee hours in the morning. You get home at 2 or 3, you fall asleep for a few hours, get up, get showered, get ready for work, to be at work for 7 or 8, and drive to work. More likely than not, you are still impaired. So, and your reason and your caution and your judgment are all impaired at that time. So something to be mindful of. Did you give yourself enough time to get rid of that alcohol in your system? What about driving under the influence? So I did talk about impairment, driving to work while impaired after a late night out. Yeah, more than likely, many of us have done that without thinking of that, of the fact that the alcohol is still in our system. So on average, what do you think is the financial cost for one DUI? Again, another awareness and education piece when thinking about our alcohol consumption. If you said 23,000, then you are correct. It's on average about $23,000 or more with one DUI. And that includes costs such as perhaps increased insurance costs, the ignition interlock system, potential court costs and fines, any type of remedial measures program, to get your car towed. There are a variety other legal costs. There are a variety of financial costs that are involved in driving while impaired. So that $30 cab ride doesn't look so bad after seeing this $23,000 value, I'm sure. Something to think about. When we talk about alcohol and energy drinks, again, another piece of education when it comes to choosing to drink alcohol and what you mix your alcohol with. There was a study done at a university in North Carolina where they found that students who mix energy drinks with alcohol were twice as likely to be injured, to need medical attention, or to make the decision to ride with a drunk driver. Sexual assault and sexual misconduct was also high when it came to mixing alcohol and energy drinks. Because the thing with alcohol, it's a depressant. Energy drinks with the caffeine, right? It is a stimulant. So it causes the nervous system to be a little bit confused. So you're drunk, but you just don't know that you're drunk. You have that wide awake drunk. If you're consuming energy drinks with alcohol, you're more likely to stay up a little bit longer as well, and your alcohol consumption could increase due to the fact that you're still up and still wanting to party and whatnot. So it is important to be mindful of this combination. Now, actually, it is against the law for servers in restaurants and bartenders they're not allowed to mix alcohol and energy drinks together. It comes separately to the patron who orders it. So when we talk about harm reduction, mocktails are a great alternative to a cocktail. So I know this is something that I have done through this COVID crisis. I've had my own kind of fun mocktails in a wine glass. There's just something about drinking out of a wine glass that I really enjoy. But instead of drinking wine all the time, I will choose some type of mocktail concoction. Because that helps me be more mindful of my alcohol consumption. So 0% alcohol, 100% tasty. On our website, we do have a mocktail guide, which provides you with a variety of recipes, such as this one here, the sparkling sangria, pineapple and cucumber spritzer, cran-up sparkler. These are just a few among many recipes that we have available. So it's important with the mocktails, not only try them yourself, but ways you can incorporate them into a night of social gatherings is maybe choose to have an alcoholic drink and in between maybe have a mocktail. Balance it out a bit when it comes to your consumption of alcohol, or choose to be the designated driver for that event and just stick to the mocktails. If you're a host at a party, make sure, or a great, not make sure, but a great suggestion would be to have fun mocktails available and perhaps highlighting that in the invitation. Fun mocktails for those DDs. So people are more inclined to perhaps be the DD if they know that they have some tasty drinks waiting for them at the gathering. Something fun to experience or experiment with. And it definitely helps minimize that risk associated with alcohol consumption and making bad decisions from increased alcohol consumption as well. I am just going to provide you with a link to our mocktail guide. I think this should come up on the slide here, and I will just invite you to click on it, and it will take you right to our website, where you will have an opportunity to download and or print off the mocktail guide. So I did talk about the mental health continuum model, and when it's applied to addiction issues, it's important to recognize that this could be something that someone close to you that you work with, they may be going through. So using the mental health continuum model, again, as a tool, it's education, it's awareness, again, building on that around alcohol consumption. So if you know what someone looks like in the green. Your colleague Joe doesn't normally drink, will drink the odd drink at a social gathering or so, but that's what, Joe's like when they're well, when they're happy, when they're dealing with stress appropriately. It's that social drinker. But then you notice that Joe's starting to drink a little bit more, not only at social gatherings, but it's tending to drink, have a drink or two after work each day. Still controlled, but you're starting to recognize that he's come late to work a couple of times and he's a little hungover a couple of times. So that may indicate, whoa, what's going on? At that point, you may want to have that conversation and offer that support. But if Joe isn't perhaps approached and starts to go into the orange, what does that look like? Alcohol use starts to increase. It's getting harder and harder to control, starting to impact his work productivity, his work performance. He's having problems at home with his partner, and there's relationship issues starting to come into play. If you start noticing something like this, again, intervene, offer that support before it gets to the point where someone falls into the red. And this is where that alcohol dependency piece comes in. This is where mental health services, healthcare professionals have to come into play to help this person get better. And it's much harder for an individual who falls into the red to get back to that green at that point. So that early intervention piece, noticing Joe having a drink every day after work, is probably the point that you want to reach out and offer that support before Joe falling into the red. So again, the more aware you are of this model and this tool and these signs, and just knowing and recognizing those changes early are key to helping somebody combat potential alcohol and substance misuse. CAF policies are there as a support for leadership and supervisors if they recognize that their subordinates or colleagues are struggling with alcohol substance misuse. So these are here to help you and to guide you and to direct you to better help those that you work with to help them get better. And you can offer that support by being familiar with some of these CAF policies. Being familiar with other resources such as health promotion, where we offer the alcohol, other drugs, gambling, and gaming supervisor training, which I talked about in the beginning. It's that 2-day workshop. It's for supervisors. We take those policies that you saw on the previous screen there, and you learn about them. You learn how to use them. We review different case scenarios and case studies, and you have an opportunity to learn what the policy is all about and learn how to apply them to individuals who are in distress or struggling with substance misuse. So again, a great opportunity to build on your awareness and education around alcohol, drugs, gambling, and gaming. If you're watching this webinar prior to the 18th and 19th of November, we have one coming up from 8 to 4, Master Corporals and above. You have the registration info down there at the bottom. And a great opportunity too in our AODGG training and supervisor workshop is you have an opportunity to meet with our base addictions counselor we partner with, and you have an opportunity to hear him speak and be familiar with him as a resource and protective factor for you to perhaps not help yourself and help others. So when it comes to defusing the booze, here are some key points I just want to reiterate. This webinar was focused on awareness and education. Some of these pieces you may have already been familiar with, but it can't help to get a review either. One thing is to really be aware of drinking patterns, not only of yourself, but perhaps of others as well. So being aware of how many drinks you're consuming, perhaps daily, weekly, in one setting. Binge drinking is classified as 4 or more drinks in one sitting for men and 3 or more for women. That is what is defined as binge drinking. So being aware of those patterns are key. Are your drinks standard drink sizes, or are they more? Following those low risk drinking guidelines, being familiar with what they are and being mindful of those, including non-drinking days within your week. So if you do enjoy, a taste of wine or beer or hard liquor, try to reduce that habit formation and tolerance to alcohol by having those non-drinking days. Incorporate mocktails into your own social gatherings. Encourage friends and family to have mocktails available as well. Designated driver programs. So to avoid any type of DUI costs, not only monetary costs, but other costs on your stress level, relationship level, physical, mental health costs as well. Use those designated driver programs such as Operation Red Nose, taxis, Ubers. Please use them, because at the end of the day, that $30 does not look so bad when we look at the negative consequences of driving while impaired. Healthy coping strategies to minimize stress. Many of us have, or are guilty of, or have said, I don't want to use the word guilty because I know I've said it, but how many of us have said, oh, it's been such a bad day, I need a drink, right? So if we had a bad day, if we're dealing with some daily stressors, what are some ways in which we can incorporate some positive coping strategies to minimize that stress? Go for a walk, go for a workout, call a friend, cook a healthy meal, play with your kids, organize a closet. There are other ways that we can better cope with some of those stressors in our lives than the alcohol. Recognize warning signs. So we went over quite a few warning signs. So recognizing those warning signs, not only in yourself, but others, that could indicate that there is a bit of alcohol misuse, can be very helpful to getting yourself and others the support and care that they need to get back on the right track. Knowing resources and policy. So knowing resources that are available to you within the CAF community is key. I'm going to provide you with a link to some CAF and community resources for members and family members in a second. But being familiar with what those resources are key. Health promotion, we're a resource. Knowing policy can also provide you with great direction. And then lastly, ask for help. If you feel like you are struggling and you feel the distress, reach out, ask for help. It's a sign of strength to do that. It's not weakness when asking for help. And there's a variety of healthcare professionals and resources that are put in place to do just that, to help you. So please, break down those barriers that do exist within the CAF community to ask for help, but be that role model and show that asking for help is a sign of strength and not weakness. So I hope this was very informative for you in terms of, trying to work at defusing the booze. The key contact card is a local resource that Health Promotion has put together for the CAF community, and it looks like that. I know it's hard to read on the screen, but you can access it on the Health Promotion webpage at the resources and links page. We have the wallet card format, but we also have it in a poster format as well. So I will bring up that link for you. I'm going to share it with you now, and if you just want to click on it there, you can put it in your favorites for easy access to a variety of resources, such as the Base Addictions Counselor, Health Services is on there, chaplains. We have Addiction and Mental Health Services from out in the community. We have the Canadian Forces Member Assistance Program, Health Promotions on there. So a tremendous amount of help and support is available on this card, but also on our webpage, we have identified additional resources and websites that you can refer to and check out. Here's another slide of resources that feel free right now to take a picture of it, to have these numbers right on your phone. Family information line. Again, the Canadian Forces Member Assistance Program, which is a 24/7 confidential, over the phone, short-term counseling service. And they are also a referral service, so they can refer you to resources in the community if you wish for more long-term counseling. It's open for CAF members and family members as well. And just a plug for our Butt Out Challenge that is happening this January. So if you are thinking of quitting smoking or tobacco, chew, e-cigarettes, you're more than welcome to join the Butt Out Challenge, where you can win prizes. We have over $400 in prizes to be won. You participate on your own time. We provide you with education and support, free medications and NRTs. There will be 4 winners because we do have 4 categories to enter into. You don't have to be a current tobacco user to participate either. So more information is found on our website. And don't forget to follow us for more information and updates as well. It's a quick way to get some information quickly. The Butt Out Challenge does start January 4th, and it runs till the end of March. And then we will announce the winners on the 31st of March. So a great opportunity to access support and education and resources if you were thinking of quitting smoking. Thank you. So if you do have any questions in relation to this webinar, please feel free to reach out to the Health Promotion Office at 541-5010, extension 3992, or you can send us an email at healthpromotionkingston@cfmws.com. And again, don't forget to follow us on social media, because it's a great way to access information very quickly on our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channel. And again, not just health promotion, but PSP in general. So thank you for listening to my webinar today. And I hope to see you in health promotion programs moving forward. Right now, and I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but we are doing a few in-class programs, not as many as we normally do, but we do offer health promotion webinars like this one throughout the month of November, 1:30 on Tuesdays. So thanks again, and stay safe, everyone.